Okay, I'm Sarah Larson. I'm the Associate Director of Retention and Academic Advising. I think I know most everyone here, so welcome. We're so excited to have you. I'm supposed to talk about classroom management. I know some of you have taught before, and then some of you are brand new instructors. So I want to make sure that this conversation is applicable to everyone. So I want you to think back to the best class you've ever had. What made it the best class you've ever had? This is where you participate.
Cooperation.
Cooperation.
I liked the instructor.
You liked the instructor.
Engagement.
It was engaging. It was probably free flowing. It wasn't like you.
It was interesting.
It was interesting. So that's the way I try to manage my classroom. So I think Xavier said before that they're barely out of high school. Yes, Aaron and I will attest to our summer program. They're very much in the high school mindset. So a lot of the conversations you're going to have on the first day is this is what a college classroom looks like. And so one of the things we say on the first day is, please don't ask me to go to the bathroom. Okay? They will ask, can I go to the bathroom? And so if you're fine with it, say, look, if you need to go to the bathroom, excuse yourself, just sneak out and do that and come back as soon as you can. But let's not make a habit of it. So that's kind of what we like to say there. But again, you've got to make the rules of engagement. So I like to start out by introducing myself and then telling the students what I want them to call me. So students call me Miss Sarah, okay? I think it's approachable, it's engaging. Mrs. Larson is my mother, and so I tell them that, and so that's not my favorite thing to be called. So start out with your rules of engagement. Hey, this is a safe place. We want everyone to be comfortable here. We're going to respect each other. You're going to do all those types of first day things. Then before you have your first big group discussion about something, anything really, you want to remind them and reinforce those good rules of engagement, because we do talk about some pretty dicey stuff. We talk about diversity, we talk about sexual orientation, we talk about safe sex, and some people get really polarized about those things. But we just want to make sure that we're being respectful of everyone. So I like to do that pretty good. The first thing, I talk about the rules of engagement. The other thing is I make fun of my peer leader shamelessly because it gets a laugh out of them, and then they start picking on him as well, and it just really gets the ball going. I have Matthew Grace, so if you ever see Matthew Grace, please feel free to pick on him as well. But on the first day, I put up a picture of my family and my cat and where I'm from. So I'm not going to ask them any questions that I haven't already told them about myself. So put up my 4 sisters, because I tell a lot of stories about my sisters. Okay? So baby Becky is a doctor, but she has no common sense. So we tell some baby Becky stories. I mean, she's like 28, but baby Becky. My sister Megan makes maps for a 3-letter agency that she can't talk about. And then my sister Katie is also an academic advisor. After she shamefully made fun of me for being an academic advisor, she became one as well, and she works at Creighton. So I talk to them about them. I talk to them about my parents, who are retired teachers, and what they did. I'm from the state of Missouri. I have a cat named Truman. So I give them all this information about me, and then I ask them about themselves. So if they feel comfortable with things they know about me, then they're more likely to share things with me. So that's kind of how I like to kick it off, to open it up, to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're welcomed. The other most important thing you can do in a college classroom is on the first day, be like, hey, everybody, look at your schedule. Are you in FYS section whatever on this day? Every other year, I had one girl who came to class for, she went to the class next door for 2 weeks before she ended up in my class. And I'm like emailing her, hey, how come you haven't been in class? And she's like, I'm going to class. And I was like, no, you're not. So, but it's inevitable that someone's going to get up and be like, I'm in the wrong spot, and we go find a way to do that. So welcoming, engaging, they're scared to death. But you have their pictures. And if you really want to creep out some freshmen, You can be like, hey Stephanie, how are you? Because you got their student ID picture, and they'll be like, what? You know me? And the quicker that you can learn their names and engage with them, the quicker they're going to respect you as an instructor. I'm terrible with names, and I hate putting name tags on people because I think that's awful. But I call them name tents, and I think they're fancy. So everybody does a name tent. You get a prize. I'll give you a piece of candy if you bring your name tent back. But it's really just for me because I've got to have that constant visual reminder to make sure that I'm engaging with my students. But calling students by their names is one of the most important things that we can do. A couple years ago, we had a Heron student who, Mindy Hiley, is wonderful at creating community. And the student walked in the door and Mindy said, hi Andrew, how are you? And he said, you're the first person to call me by my name all day. Aww. And so that was really impactful to the student to make sure that you know their names and that they know you care about them. The other thing we can do is, there's this line we like to use. We like to say, well, successful college students arrive to class on time, right? This is what a successful college student does. And so part of creating your classroom environment, you can say, successful college students would get all their notebooks out right now and make sure that they're prepared to start taking notes. And like giving them those subtle cues about this is what a successful college student looks like, and then this is what what we expect you to do. And so sometimes you just have to spell it out. Hey, I need you to do whatever. And then sometimes they'll pick up on your hints. But those are important. Really, you've got to pick whatever fits your style as far as your classroom management. If you really want to call on people before they answer, just make sure you let the students know that's what you want to do. If you let them to shout out, that kind of stuff. I am comfortable with that as long as it stays under a loud roar. As long as they're participating and enjoying themselves, I think that's really important. And then your peer leader is also really important in engaging your class, and they can also help you manage your class to make sure that it's headed in the right direction. I know that's a big, broad overview, but you guys just need to think about like, what classroom environment have you been in before that you were super comfortable in, and how do you recreate that for your students? I've never had a situation where I had to, like a student said something completely inappropriate and it escalated, but I have said that doesn't sound very respectful, and they picked up on it right away. You ever had anything that, for the most part, they know their boundaries and that kind of stuff. Sometimes we have to talk about maybe respecting people's boundaries or having open minds about things, and that's most of the situations that I've come into when it comes to classroom management. And then the attendance issue. So I always, if you don't attend and I tell them from the first day, you're a part of my class now, I'm responsible for you. If you're not here, I think something's wrong because I know how important my class is to you. Okay? And so then every time they miss, I always take it from the approach of, is everything okay? I know you'd have a really good reason if you miss class. So that's kind of the...
What about cell phone uses? Do you have issues with the...
So yes, we do. So I usually say that, you're an adult, you can have it out if you want to, but if you're going to be it on all the time, I'm going to call you out on it. So we had Coach Spradlin came in and talked to our students yesterday, and he did a great job. And he's like, we're going to get started here as soon as my man's done with his phone call right here. Just called him out like that. So there are subtle ways that you can do it. But if you're a strictly no cell phone person, if it's going to drive you crazy, you just need to tell your students that ahead of time. I'm okay with it as long as they're just not on it constantly. So that's kind of the approach that I take with that. What questions do you guys have? I feel like I'm just rambling at this point.
I appreciate your ramblings a lot.
Yes.
This is good insight, thank you.
Yeah, it's not, I know some people, I've talked to new instructors and they feel a little intimidated or nervous. I don't think it's anything to be nervous about. They're way more nervous than you've ever been. If you were to think back to your first day of college, if you had a first-time instructor, you would have never known because you were probably so nervous that you wouldn't know any different anyway. And it's your classroom, you can do whatever you want. So I usually try to, yes?
What about safety in your classroom? I teach a class, and I teach a 2:30 face-to-face class, and we had 2 doors to our class.
Mhm.
And I asked for one person to kind of keep an eye on the front door and the end door at the classroom. And we kept those doors open because of COVID. And that was just my thinking. No one told me that.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of thought, you know, more air in here, you know, when we were all masked.
Mhm.
And but I said to my students that if you ever hear a negative sounds in the building, you close this door. The doors were locked.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're all gonna be in different classrooms.
Yeah, so usually when you go into each of the classrooms, there's some safety stuff posted on the door.
Mhm.
So either just make yourself aware of that. And then on the first day, it is good practice to say, you know, this is what would happen if there were a tornado or a fire, this is our exit, that kind of stuff.
To exit the building.
Yeah, just to go over those general safety type things. We do an active shooter. Is that still in there? There's an active
They're working on
campus.
making some changes to
Yeah.
the campus safety.
Campus
so I'm not sure
Safety
what's
Week.
there now.
There is some talk about active shooters, that kind of stuff. And so during that week, we usually, you know, make a plan. If we had to get out of the classroom, if we had to barricade ourselves in, what would we do? Who would be responsible for what? We usually talk about those types of things as well. Unfortunately, we have to talk about those types of things.
Right.
But yeah, yep. Trying to think what else you guys would want to know. It's not scary. You guys are going to be great. It'll be
I'd
awesome.
like to make a suggestion.
Yes.
It is much harder to be restrictive after you've been fully
Right.
open.
Yeah.
So it's tempting to want to be their buddy, right?
Mhm.
To, hey, my name's Xavier, not Mr. Scott. You can call me Xavier because I'm your buddy. And, oh yeah, you can turn that in whenever you want to, but later on, when work's starting to pile up and you don't have time to do everything and you really needed them to start picking up their slack, well, now they're not going to listen to you because now you're their buddy and they're going to take advantage of that. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. I like to start my classes out now with a little bit more of the authoritarian side. This is what I want you to do. This is what you need to do to be a successful student. This is when I want you to have stuff done. And it sounds kind of stern. But then later on, I could be like, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a much easier direction to travel.
Yeah.
I would say with my classroom management, I kind of tell my students that everything's a scam. Like, you think like 4 years, classes are over. And you're like, no, it's a scam. Classes end and they just change the name to meeting.
Yes.
Your professor becomes your boss. Like everything you're doing right now, I don't think that in 4 years it's gonna go away. Like, they just change the names of things. But essentially the exact thing, like, I'm not gonna take notes anymore for the rest of my life. Go to your meeting and don't take notes during your meeting and then get the phone call 2 days later about what you didn't do. So, and I even, in terms of classroom management, I tell them, this is like a business meeting in reality. Like my office meeting. The same kind of interactions that I would have in my office meeting. Like if I'm on my phone the whole time, I think my boss is really gonna love it. Megan was gonna be like, yeah, you're doing a great job, Aaron. I'm on my phone the whole time during our meeting. It's the same kind of thing. And a lot of things with like cell phones, I talk about just like respect. Like if I have an important phone call, like my wife texts me like, you know, I'm leaving, I gotta walk outside. Like I'm gonna walk outside. Like if you got an important thing in your phone, just walk outside. That's the respect. That's what I would do in a meeting situation. And for me, it's like, you know, being in the career services office, it's like, this is really like your last time to figure out like what that professional world's gonna look like. So I tend to treat my classroom less like, you know, what you did in high school. We're all adults essentially, even though you might act like a child a lot. But let's treat this like the exact same things are gonna happen to you in terms of meetings and things like that. And I even call it like, you know, I'll say we meet next week at this kind of thing, even trying to make it look a little bit different than what a lot of their classes look like. Because I think this class is unique in a lot of terms.
Any other questions about classroom management? About anything? I also like to do the question of the day, which I'll talk to you about the question of the day and then I'll let Erin talk about team building. But when I take roll, there's a different question every day. So what's your favorite candy? And so their roll question is, what's your favorite candy? And then literally it's different every single day. So you get to know a little bit something about them. We always start superficial frou-frou, okay? And then by the end of the semester, it's, you know, my favorite is a hot dog a sandwich? Meg,
What
is a hot dog a sandwich?
is a hot dog? Oh, philosophical question.
Yeah. So let me give
I
you-
just wa-
Is a hot dog a
I
sandwich?
just watched a lecture on this.
So,
Yeah,
like, you know, things like
yes.
that. So funny things.
Yes, that's cool.
Sometimes the kids will come in and be like, I have a question. I have the question. You know what I mean? And then it'll be about something that happened in Stranger Things that I have no idea about, but they're really, really into. So, and then I also let my Pearly go do that. But it's just just a different way for them to identify with other people in the room. And then sometimes we'll do a question of the day, like peanut butter or chocolate. And then when we go break up into groups later, we have a peanut butter group and a chocolate group. So they just self-selected themselves into a group. So that's another way to do that kind of stuff, and a good way to mix it up. So, and Aaron's going to talk about building community now.
There we go.
Yeah?
We'll slide this way.
Okay.
All right. So, like we kind of started talking about before, I see, actually, when I teach this class, most of the time I don't stand up. When I first started teaching it, like I came from like a classroom background, and I'd stand up and pretend like I was like a regular teacher. I actually don't teach this class standing up. I teach it sitting down, and I find I get much more response in terms of people talking to me. And it kind of goes back to that business meeting kind of mentality. We're all at the same level. I'm not talking above you. I'm not going to talk down to you. I try to be as authentic as I possibly can. So if you meet me in the real world at Cracker Barrel, it's the same Hirsch you get when you're in my room. There's no difference between the two. Which is either good or bad or in between. But I think the authenticity piece is really, really important, that you're not putting on your phone voice when you're talking to kids or talking down to them or making them feel like they're, you know, this lower being than you are. For me, the classroom in terms of building that community is the most important piece to this class. Like I tell my kids, you need to make friends in your dorm, and now you have this group of like 19, 20 people that you need to make friends with. This is like one more opportunity for you to network and make friends outside, because in your other classrooms, there's not going to be that connection that you have with other students. Like you've got to take advantage of this time to meet and know each other. And it's really hard for them to really break down and figure out how like you go about like making friends in this really synthetic kind of environment. So a lot of what I do in terms of that is facilitating, like observing, like in our office, right, in career services. I got people in my career services office. Everyone kind of plays a role. People change in that office and roles change for what people are. Like Andrew's in my office now, and he's like a connection for me to like when I have a craft academy, you know, question, he's got knowledge on that. When I need to know what student organizations look like, he's that part and that piece, that younger piece to our office that's important. I've got Meg in that office now, and she's like this, like, you know, influence of change, like looking to make things different and change things. You know, I've got Megan Boone, who's my boss, who's like has more time here than anybody, who now is that wealth of information. But understanding that in order to build the community, you have to give someone an opportunity to take up a role. Like I even use, and I have like, and I don't like say your role is going to be scribe. You're taking notes for all of us, or you know, like sometimes you'll get in a classroom setting where like you're the leader today, and you're this. It's not a formal kind of thing. I look to see the personality of the student, and then based on their personality, like Sarah's the person that makes me laugh, so I'm going to let her go a little longer and let her play that role in the community. That's going to be a little entertainment piece that I have, if that makes sense. And then I'll have other people where this is the person who's super lazy, who does nothing. I need this person to, or super lazy but highly intelligent. How about that?
Yeah.
Super intelligent but does almost nothing. I need this person to, their role be to help other students who are struggling. Because you'll find these students, even though they're all freshmen for the most part in fall, they're all tracking together in the same similar kind of courses. They're all going through, or sometimes they'll be in the same courses with each other and won't talk to each other. We're in English 100 with Pruitt, and we don't talk to each other, but we're in the same FYS class. I need those students to clump together, and to, in some regards, they'll complain about how bad he is or what she does or whatever. To me, that's like group building, that's community building for them. Like, yeah, sure, whatever it is, but so that they're actually connected to each other is important. But that I'm doing things to facilitate those roles that make up a community. And it's about like I even have I usually will designate someone who doesn't like to talk. When I do a rhetorical question, they're my yes person, and they're required to say yes every time I ask the rhetorical question. And they get it after a couple of weeks. They're like, yeah, or someone's gone, like, I'm missing my yes person today. I need you to be my yes person for the day. But just to get them communicating. And my big pet peeve is not so much the cell phone, it's when I walk in to a room and everyone is on their cell phone. Individually, like looking whatever, they're TikToking or whatever they're doing, and there's no communication. And I'll usually tell my students, like the first class or two, if you're talking and interacting with each other, I'll usually give you 10 or 15 minutes right at the beginning of class to talk and get to know each other. If you're on your phones, we start right away when it comes down to it. So I do give a little bit of the carrot, a little bit of the reward. I do walk the line like Xavier does with like me being your buddy. I don't care what you call me. And I usually use like a cultural example. Like if you were in my Latin American, if I was in Cali, Colombia teaching you, you'd call me, I don't know, you'd call me by my first name. It'd be weird if you called me by my last name. And I don't care what kids call me when it comes down to it. What I'm looking for is that to build a relationship with a student, that they will often do for me what they won't do for themselves. That I'm going to make that person, they have to buy into my BS, essentially, the garbage that I'm spewing out there. And once they buy in, I got you, you're done. Because now you're going to attend my class because you don't want to let me down. And a lot of kids, even at this level, are at a point where they just don't want to let you down. You kind of figure out what their currency is. You find a kid who wants your attention, wants you to, sometimes what the life at home looks like. And the biggest thing for me in terms of building the community is the idea, my kids are my resource. I get as much from them as they get from me. When I need to do something, I'm always like, my relationship has to be good with my FYS kids because I use them for everything. Like, I've got 6 international kids coming in here in a couple of months and no one to deal with them, right? I'm an office of 1, and who will deal with those international kids for me is my current FYS students and students that I know from the past for whatever who have connections and contacts with me. And oftentimes I'm pushing those kids into positions like, hey, you should run for SGA whatever, because I need the influence in that department so we can get a free club to get my $500. So I'm pushing them to go out and join things and get involved because in the end, one of my best resources are my students that already exist. So much of my study abroad, which is what I do here, my study abroad is students that, hey, my friend who was in your FYS class says that's all you ever talk about is study abroad and how you do it and you can do it. And now they come in, or my FYS kids will bring in other kids to my office. So for me, it's like all the office staff that I'm missing in recruiting and marketing and all kind of things. These students become that for me. And then they know that no matter what happens to you, and I don't care, like I saw a student the other day working at Walmart, like what's going on, already dropped out, that the relationship never ends. That no matter what happens to you, you go to jail, I'm the person you call. Like I give my kids some people are like, no, I don't give kids my cell phone number. I give my kids my cell phone number, whatever they need, whatever hassle they're having. And I have kids who came in my office 3 days ago, where it basically comes down to like, have this, living off campus with my roommate, have problems, whatever. Like that's always, for me, I don't have an issue with that. That's where you kind of have to draw the line on what's too far, or sometimes in terms of like, Title IX and liability and things like that, being what's the word? A reporter? No, it's not. Mandatory reporter. I'll let students know that ahead of time. You tell me something, don't think that it's, if you tell me something that's beyond, I have to report. I tell kids that off the bat. But I also tell you, I'm going to do things nonstop for you. If you need a job, I'm going to take every resource I have to find you a job on campus. And kids see that you're willing to do whatever it takes, and then it's reciprocal back.
You need
they'll-
your car jumped? Oh, Aaron.
Yeah, like, yeah, car doesn't work, bad, we're going to AutoZone, we're jumping your car, like, whatever. And kids know that that's a resource they have, and they know the resource isn't just for this semester. And the biggest difference, like we do, some of us are, we do with Success Academy students are different cohorts for Talons and things like that. Those kids are already grouped, those kids have created a bond that exists that really helps them in terms of retention. If we want Sarah to do well at her job and her retention rate to go out, no one says, I really want to come back next semester so I can go to Dr. Mock's government course. That's why I want to come back. They want to come back because their friends are here and they want to be with their friends. And the more friends we can create for them or give them opportunities to create is your number one thing for retention when it comes down to it. I mean, the reality of the situation. That's why for me, one of the hardest pieces is building that community, because you will literally sit there the first time and they are super scared. Everybody's nervous. No one wants to be the person who's talking, right? They don't want to have that role in your community right now, right? No one wants to be that person. But it's the most important piece for me, is that, and then within the community, showing the importance of the academics that you're you know, it's like a life skills kind of course. To show them the importance of the why of why you're doing things, why it's important. Like I always tell the story, my roommate freshman year, what did he give me? $200,000 as soon as I graduated in an interest-free loan to start a business. And I was like, your $200,000 isn't right here. Don't go around asking what their dad's income is. But in reality, that's the networking part that they don't see a lot of times. For them to thoroughly understand the importance of that human contact. And how college is a social aspect, and you've got to balance it with the academics. And then my big thing for them too is, we're this community, we're going to enjoy and have a good time. And my big thing in terms of like classroom management or everything, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you're up there talking and saying whatever, and you're boring yourself, it's tenfold with the people looking at you. Like I tell them, like first day, you might enjoy this class, but I'm going to have a good time with all the crazy stuff that comes out of my mouth. And all the stuff that you don't even laugh at, and I was laughing like 10 minutes ago when I first thought of it. So I make the experience enjoyable, at least for me. And then, you've created the community when you start to see connections and when you start to see, you can see it start to build. And like Sarah's big thing, like on the group me, which is a big one for them to talk with each other. And I use my peer leader to, have you talked about group me yet?
A little
They
bit.
talked about group me. Group me is just that, that's where you can build, that's where they start to post, and then it goes out of control. And that's like a safe space, I think, for them, that I have to talk in front of a group of people I don't know isn't a big thing, but I put a post up with something stupid on there, that's a whole lot easier for me to deal with, as kind of that starting point. So I think the group me is actually really important. And I never delete my group me's. I have people who send me like group me's from from 3 years ago, and they're in New Orleans for the summer, and they're like, hey, there it is. And I'm like, Hirsch, I'm on Bourbon Street, check it out. I'm like, cool, whatever. But that's why I keep them, and I tell them my group me will stay open, because I don't technically know how to stop it. But it stays open forever until I get a new phone that I don't know how to work. But that's the idea for me, and I try to make the material engaging. And it is, a lot of the community is me telling my stories, which they never believe, which you think are like crazy, whatever. And then they tell their stories, and then you get this like storytelling kind of environment where it's like a safe space to do that. And I think one of my biggest complaints that I get sometimes, and it's because I tell them to complain about it half the time, is I don't move in a straight line. Wherever my course goes, there's enough time and content-wise with what you have to do that if you go sideways for 15 minutes, it's okay. If it engages them, if that's what they're doing, there's enough time to get through content. Sometimes I think if you've taught in other settings, you're like, I got to get through this. I've got standards and objectives and SLOs I've got to cover today. You can afford to go sideways here if it's an engaging kind of thing. And I even tell my kids, how do you control the room? You raise your hand. Once you raise the hand, you can point me in the direction you want me to go with your question.
You know, so I always try to give them, that's my big thing, is I always try to do different points of view. Like sometimes even roles might be, especially if I've got a kid whose brain works a little different than mine, or most people's. I'll use that student all the time. That's a student I really, really like, because his point of view is always different, and I might be, unique point of view, give it to me right now, Xavier. And they can always, what they're going to come up with is always crazy, and everyone's going to be like, that's the craziest answer I've ever heard in my life. But that's what their role is in the group, is to always give you that like really bizarre, weird, whatever way of looking at things. But I always try to present those opportunities. That's the big thing, is figure out what someone's role can be, and then try to push them or kick them into that direction. What else do you think, Sarah, Xavier?
Taught me some things today.
There we go. I don't know if they're right or wrong. We also said that one too. There is no right or wrong. It's always gray for me.
It might be a struggle the first couple of weeks, but there will be a tipping point
Yeah.
for your class when the community has built. One time I had a free corn dog day, or 50-cent corn dog day at Sonic.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the group me. I saw it come through social media, screenshotted it, posted it, and said, hey, it's 50-cent corn dog day at Sonic. You know, just throwing it out there for them. I come out of a meeting in Hal McDowell, and there's 150 messages on the group me because they got into a debate about which was better on corn dogs, ketchup or mustard. And like they were putting polls out there and that kind of stuff. And so like I was struggling with this class, and who knew that a screenshot of 50-cent corn dog day in the group me was going to push them over the edge.
And that's what I use my peer leader for all the time, is like, I pretty much tell my peer leader like the first day, you're posting crazy, whatever kind of content, like it's your social media site, nothing that's offensive or gonna be a problem within reason, but I have them doing all kinds of stuff like that, and then half the time they're talking about you and don't even realize that you can actually see everything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, oh yeah, this is her, yeah, I can actually see this, like, and then you participate in it, and then it just explodes even more, like once they see you,
So
like respond back to somebody, and then you'll see, oh, that's like, you just like made their world a lot of times, especially if you can create that relationship where they want to do well for you, like they want you to, you're that driving force. What you got?
So in the group me, you don't usually initiate the contact.
I don't, because I'm an old man, when it comes right down to it, and like, you know, they look at me, for me doing it, it just doesn't seem authentic. It's not something that I would do, and that's my whole thing, like, I'm like completely real with students, like, I can barely read, didn't learn to read till I was in 4th grade, which for a lot of my kids, well, I connect with, they have like reading disabilities and things like that, but I'm like completely upfront, like, and they'll find out like my strengths. When we do the financial section here, I'm super strong on that. I can tell you the difference between, you know, mutual funds and what's going on versus why you want to be in this or that. That we're super strong on. Other things I'm like, oh, relationships or whatever with people and empathy and all these things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't quite know how that works. Peer leader, tell us how you feel empathy for someone. And that's where you're using the strengths of your peer leaders and things like that. And then your students are going to step up for you. But you've got to break it down where, and that's where, like I tell them the first day, this isn't your regular class. Like your regular classes, you got to be on it all the time, nonstop. This isn't your regular class. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be more like your mentor, which means I'm going to bully you a lot of times when it comes down to make you get uncomfortable and make you push yourself a little harder than you want to. But we're here hanging out, and the idea is for you to be successful. And my FYS class is the canary in the coal mine. That's my Canucky analogy, right? Because if you're not showing up for this, unless you're a music student, you're not showing up for anything when it comes down to it. So you're failing my class, you're not going to everything but me. That just doesn't happen in most cases. So it lets me realize we've got a problem or what's going on. And I even do tricks, all kind of things, like I'll give someone $20 and be like, I want donuts, right? We had donuts on Wednesday. I just gave you $20 because I'm too lazy to bring them, and I'll tell them that right off. $20 for donuts. Go get me some donuts on Wednesday when we show up. Now you have to show up because you have my $20, right? And everyone in that room wants donuts now. And I'll do every kind of trick I can. Like if I have something that happens and I have to, like I'm just not gonna have class, we've done really, really well and I'll give them a reward, or we're not gonna have class on Friday, I will I will never send an email to say that we're canceling class, ever, because I'll be there. And then you showed up, you weren't there on Wednesday, I trapped you on Friday. What are we doing? All the work that you're behind on right now. Let's go over and see everything, and I totally trapped you now. You have nowhere to go, the door is shut, and now we're doing every assignment that you don't have right now, here and now.
kids.
And you'll trap 2 or 3 like every single time. They're like, oh, I totally wasn't here on Wednesday. I'm like, you weren't, and now you're paying for it because no one's in the room, just you and me.
I do that.
But this is the idea, and that's the kind of thing that you're building community with. You're creating that relationship so that they're willing to, in some cases, depend on you so you can control them to a degree. But that's pretty much what we do.
I have a question. It's more like a brainstorm. I've been doing the online version for several years. I've had discussions with other online instructors for FYS, and obviously being social is really important. I find it very difficult, and I don't think I've ever actually accomplished that.
Yeah, I taught online once and will never do it again unless I'm forced to.
Yeah.
It is the hard, and I'll be honest, I've taught a lot of other courses online in different capacities at different levels. And I hate to say it, but for me, you have to change the entire format of the class. It has to be totally built on forums and rooms like that and responses to other answers. Like to make the online course really work, in my opinion, has to have a full chain. Like the content will remain the same, but the way that it's presented, the requirements for assignments wouldn't be as much of the reflection and things like that. It would more be like a forum responses that they have to do other. But that whole format really, that's where when I did it, it's the only time I can honestly say I did not enjoy teaching FYS was when I had to do full online with students. Just because I was like, I get nothing out of this. I don't get a resource. I don't know any of these kids. I can't see this kid on campus, and I'm the kind of person, just like who I am. I see you across campus, I will scream at you like, hey, what's up, buddy? And I 3 years ago, and the people, all their friends are like, what's going on? Who's this old guy? And you're like, yeah, what's going on? When you go on abroad, what's going on here? We've got that scholarship waiting for you. And I tell them that off the bat, like, you got me now. If you don't want it, you should drop or switch right now because you got me until as long as I can find you. But that's to me, it's you have to completely change what it looks like, and that's not a lot of fun.
Something personal.
Yeah, and the worst part is when I taught it, I would have kids when they asked the final reflection. That's one thing that I read really, really close, and the final reflection was how is your sense of community in this class? And I tell kids on that, be as brutally honest as you possibly can on your final reflection, but you have to prove it. If the class sucks, you need to tell me why. Give me 3 reasons why this class sucks, so it's very clear to me. And on that one, I had people in the online version telling me, I had the best sense, met some of my best friends in this class and all this thing. Like, I feel like I'm so much closer to people. And I'm like, you are the worst liar ever. Because you don't know anyone in this class, because I don't know anyone in this class. But I think it is the hardest. To me, like, I want no part of that. Like, that's the way you make me quit. You can tell people, you want Hirsch to quit, just give him 3 online.
It's especially
FYS
difficult
classes.
with this because we're not allowed to change anything.
Yeah, that's
So, I mean, changing of the grading structure is, it's possible, but.
Yeah, no, and that's why I say it would be-
FYS again.
yeah, it's not something that's, I think, going to happen with the committee for FYS or anything like that anytime soon. But that was my take on it, having taught, and even taking courses that were online that I thought were really good. The best online courses I took were all basically forum the entire time. Everything, that whole conversation you had in the room was people making on. And I think it could be successful because kids are so into memes and texting and things like that, where literally the assignment is built around the technology, where you're giving me a meme for this or that, and it's part of a conversation. But it's not that now. So suffer the joy.
What questions do we have for Aaron? You can ask.
You can ask me anything. That's what I tell my kids too, and I'll sometimes give you the truth. Andrew!
What's your favorite anecdote to tell students?
I have tons of them, and they're usually set up by like a story. Like, I'm in Nicaragua in 1978, just got out of NAM type thing, even though I'm not quite that old.
But it's usually set up by a story, so I have like all kinds of things, like life gives you a crap sandwich, it's probably because you ordered it. Or never trust someone who doesn't hate someone. I have like thousands of them that are all attached to stories.
So there's some morals.
It's like a Golden Girls approach.
It's like the Golden Girls.
Picture this,
approach.
Sicily.
Picture this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a story, and then you get that.
Or like
the
saying
punchline of the story is
Always
usually
going back.
is usually the thing that they get. But yeah, I would say there's, and I think everything. That's what I say. My class, I never know. Like I'll teach it 3 times. I never know where I'm going to end up. And the kids, after a couple of classes, they fully understand that we have no idea where we're going. That we did 1 PowerPoint slide today. We better really pick it up next time. Or in the other class, we did 12 PowerPoint slides. And that's where I'm bad. It would drive, and I know some of my students don't enjoy the fact that there's not clear, defined boundaries to what I do. But that's just like who I am to a degree. We get through all the stuff. I make sure they're always prepared for their exams. That's for their quizzes that they take. And do the academic part. And everybody has, like, you're not changing content, but you're definitely going to tweak it to what, like, I like the academic writing point. I give long comments even if they don't read them when it comes down to it, because I want them to focus on, like, academic writing. And for me, the way I sell it is the idea, there's nothing worse than getting a job you're not qualified for. And it takes Andrew 10 minutes to write that report, and because I'm not qualified, because I'm not a good, fast, quick writer, efficient writer, now it takes me 40 minutes. So we make the same money. He works a quarter as hard as I work because I didn't take the time to perfect my skill at being a quick, efficient writer and use all the tools I need, like Grammarly or whatever I need, to make that happen in a quick, efficient manner. You're just punishing yourself later on in life, and it's about to happen. And that's our choices.
Yeah, choices.
Life punishes you, not your mom anymore. And you thought your mom was really bad. Wait until life gets a hold of you. And that's part of it too. If you end up teaching in spring, I'll say it's a completely different beast. If any of you end up in spring courses, there the whole role thing is completely very, very clear. You have students who failed the course several times. You have non-traditional students who, for me, are that if you get a non-traditional student in your class, it's the best environment. Because I had a bunch of kids from Nepal, and I had someone who was like 33 with 2 kids, and she became mom for those kids. Because that's not one of the functions that I can provide. And she totally took over that role in my class, and she was like totally taking care of these like 6 kids from Nepal. And I was like, this is the like perfect situation on there, like here's what's going on, and the whole thing, like helping them in classes and where they had to go and the whole deal. That's why I say if you can get someone to take over a role for you, they're good and they'll show up just so they're providing that service to the group, service to the community, whether they know it or not.
Can you talk a little bit about the overachieving student and getting them to buy into FYS? 'Cause they're
Yeah,
like,
oh, that's a big one too. Like, yeah, I already know all this. Like, this is like,
and no offense, but if they went to Round County High School and they took early college classes, they think you're useless.
yeah. And that is the buy-in where it comes in for me. And there it is, that overachieving student will read your comments lots of times. And that's where the comment section for me is key. Because I tell them I was like, if you make my grading system is pretty much, you give me an honest effort, you don't write 15 words and call that 300, I'm going to give you full credit. Because grades to me, and it's basically how I was raised, my parents didn't care if I passed or failed school, they didn't care at all. They were like, consequences are going to happen to you, whatever happens to you. If you want to do better in life, you do go to school. If you don't, we don't care. Right? And for me, it's like, your grade, I don't care. And I go, if you really want to see what I think, and I've already built this relationship where you care what I think about you, then be careful with my comment, because sometimes they're not passive aggressive. They come off as a little bit aggressive. That's why I got Grammarly, so I can see exactly what the tone is on what I'm writing. But I will simply say, and I do a lot with like one of the first things you get in the writing section, there's like the taxes format, which is theme, assertion, example, evidence, significance. And I will basically say like, I'll diagram your sentences for you. Sentence number 1 is a claim. Sentence number 2 is a claim. Sentence number 3 is a claim. I'm glad you have opinions, but I don't care what you think.
type thing. Like you've got, and we'll talk about it in class, and I throw stuff up with no one's name on it, and sometimes it's this group, sometimes it's usually never someone who's it's actually their work on the board, but it might be from another class or a class where I had before, where we go, look, this is what garbage looks like. But now I'm going to explain to you why it's garbage and why you're wasting my time to read it. And say, you've made all these opinions, and that's their number one thing in their writing. It's a lot of their opinion, but there's no evidence to support it. Yeah, you think guns shouldn't be in the classroom, but you haven't given me any evidence to support that. So I don't care what you're thinking. So this is where I like to break down. I'll break down sentence by sentence by sentence on like what it is, like diagramming what they are. And I was like, you just gave me a bunch of opinions. I need like more substance to what you're doing. Or give me significance. Why is this even important? What's the end goal? But I call them out on very specific things. And students will then say, and it's like I always say, if you got a problem, like don't take it personal. I'm just trying to make you better. That's why I say I'll bully my student to a degree as the mentor, with the idea that I want you to get better at this. So, and I tell students, if the reflection takes you 40 minutes to write, we have a problem. Because you need to write at a faster pace to do what you're doing right now. And let me help you break this down. And then I'll use a lot of my past experience. I worked in translation in foreign universities, translating dissertations from Spanish to English at one point in time. So I do what's called reverse outlining, which is a weird thing where you actually do the outline after you've written the paper. And in translation, you have to do it. And show kids weird stuff like that. Like, I can show you your paper is garbage because look at the outline you just wrote, if that makes sense. And I go, look at your outline. It doesn't make sense. What you wrote, the combination of sequence doesn't make logical order. Like, move this around and we can do it, and that's what I'll work with. And that's why I show a lot of work on the board to show them where something goes wrong so they can identify, this is garbage. Now you know when you write garbage. Because a lot of kids will write something that's really, really good, and I tell stories about it where I thought it was good and I got an F. Whoops, right? You should be able to identify garbage when you see it.
Yeah.
And that's what we work a lot. And that's how, for that other kid, right? You throw something up and you say, that kid who's the high achiever, what's wrong with this? And they can't tell you 9 times out of 10. They'll say, it looks fine to me, and you're like, yeah, it says absolutely nothing. It's completely circular. There's no argument here. And then you say, when you can do that, when you can break it down for me, then you don't need to be in my class anymore. And then I'll go, what's the difference from like a premium and a deductible on insurance? You're overachiever. Can you tell me that? No, they can't. Right? Can you tell me what triple net on a lease is? You're going to start your own small business. What's triple net? No, they can't. There's a lot of life information in this course. Right? Academically, you might be there. But there's a lot of things in life that you haven't been taught that you should have been taught, and now's the time you're going to get it. So you can get, because I'm all about outcome. Like, I'm going to show you the pieces you need to get the outcome that you want, because I switch my outcome about every year and a half. So I'm going to show you how to get the outcome that you want. And that's my big trick with kids is, I've had 1,000 jobs, and this is my last one. So get with it, because you can do whatever you want. You just got to know how to get what you want.
And FYS is the same academic credit as college algebra. So if you don't go to FYS and get a failing grade and you fail at college algebra, you just fail 2 classes. You know what I mean? So it's not overly hard, but they do need to put in effort to be successful.
Yeah, this is, and you'll find a lot of your students, it's A-round. There's not a lot of in between. Kids are either doing the work or they've quit and given up, and now you're looking for them. And I find I'm like, my daughter works at Starbucks, so I'm like, hey, was Miles at Starbucks today? Yep. And she's like got the same kind of weird memory that I have. She was like, yep, he got his purple macchiato, whatever, grande. And I was like, yeah, when you see him in there, tell me you should go to Hershey classes and stop waiting in line at Starbucks. So, and I'll find kids everywhere. Like if you walk by me and you become my class last week, I'm going to stop you. It's just how I am. And now that I'll be in ADUC all the time, like it's all over for kids. I'll be seeing them all the time. I'll be watching them go. I actually find them in line now, even better.
I can just imagine your head just kind of tilting into the frame.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Any other questions? And at any point in time, like the nice thing about where I'm in career services, or no,
the Center for Career Development and Experiential Education. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I say it right?
Mhm.
Okay. It's nice in our office because everyone just about teaches FYS. So we have our own little community where you're like, oh, what's this? What's happening there? Like, what's up with this assignment? Like, what's up with this PowerPoint? What's wrong with that? Which video doesn't work? If you do have any questions, like, feel free to always reach out. Most everybody who
Just come
teaches this
over.
is open
Yeah, just come over.
to figure. Just yeah,
We have a coffee pot.
we do, and like a 1960s microwave.
We do.
Just turn a knob.
What's next?
Student success coaching. Supposed to cover that. Getting to know your students from a holistic perspective. So part of the community building is that you're going to start interacting with your students, and you can start asking the questions like, well, what else is going on? Probably the hardest thing that I don't like people who cry. Like, it makes me so uncomfortable. And so when you have a student crying, I like to do one-liners. One of the best one-liners you can do is say, you seem really upset. What else is going on? I feel like you're overly upset right now. And so usually then we'll start gushing out and telling you all the things. And so that's part of the holistic stuff, is that when they start telling you the things, that you're there to support them. And so part of being an FYS instructor is being a life coach. Okay, so I'm going to use Matthew as a great example. So Matthew, we were talking about Christmas presents. It was like right before Thanksgiving break, Christmas presents. And I said, Matthew, what are you going to buy your girlfriend for Christmas, right? And he says, I'm going to get her a hoodie. And I said, Matthew, that is a terrible gift. Okay? So then everybody in the room gave him advice on what they thought a better gift would be than a hoodie. They're not together anymore. Didn't work out. He got her a hoodie. Okay? It was a terrible gift.
That's why it didn't work.
But students will come in. Just got a message from a Success Academy student. I'm at the health clinic. They say I need a form to get seen. Well, call your mom. Don't call me. I don't have that kind of stuff. But if they just need a person to ask questions to, this is also where your peer leader is awesome, because I don't know how meal plans work. I don't understand, all the stuff. If the laundry machine in the dorm doesn't work, you need to tell your RA or shake it a certain way or whatever it is. That's where your peer leader can come in, and they can support them on the campus college wise. But when they come to you and it's above, I always say it's above your pay grade. If you're like, okay, the student has all sorts of financial aid issues and I don't know what to do with them, that's when you call for assistance. So that's when you contact Michelle or I or one of the academic advisors. So all incoming freshmen have a professional advisor. So they have an advisor who is assigned to them. Some of them also have faculty advisors, but they all have professional advisors. And so this is the part where you send up the bat signal and you say, okay, advisor, I'm not sure what to do next. I need to put this on your radar, and they will kind of pick up from there. But students, you'll see a lot of students who have a lot of sticker shock, especially in the first couple of weeks. And they'll say, oh my gosh, I thought I had enough aid to cover this. And they're freaking out. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's look at your account. So if you're comfortable them showing your account, they'll show it to you. If it's got a negative number, they're getting a refund. So they just went into full panic mode over $1,000, and that's what they're getting back. So I always tell students, you can ask me anything you want to ask. I may not know the answer, but we'll go find it together. And so that's the part of supporting them holistically. And so sometimes it's looking at the bill and saying, okay, hey, that's in the negative. That means it's a refund. Or, yeah, it doesn't look like you have any aid on there. We probably need to go down to financial aid. After class, Matthew will take you to financial aid. See, shamelessly abusing Matthew. To make sure that you have everything taken care of. Sometimes they'll have some family issues they want to talk about. The changing relationship, which is like week 2 or 3, that is really more important than I think a lot of the students are going to give it credit to. So you moved away to college, and when you go home, you automatically have to renegotiate those roles. And so then I tell a story about First time I came home from college, I went to see my friend Becky Riley. I left at 10 o'clock. I came back at 2 o'clock in the morning. My mom yelled at me because she's like, oh my God, you're up to 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, I was only gone 4 hours. You know what I mean? So we hadn't renegotiated those roles within that to make sure that we were all on the same page. So giving them a heads up, hey, you're going home for the first time after your break. It could be a little different. You know, make sure you check in with your folks. Setting boundaries. Sometimes their parents call nonstop. And so we talk about that a lot with Relationship Week. But giving them those cues that you're their person and you can help them with any of those things, they're going to start spilling their guts to you. The biggest thing you need to know is that you're not on your own and that you have the academic advising staff. There is, and I think we'll do it the next time, there is a formal way to request assistance. It's called a retention alert. So you'll all have access and you can formally go in and put a retention alert in on someone and it will go to their academic advisors. You can also call Michelle or I. We can put the retention alert in on the back end to make sure that we can provide assistance. There's all sorts of funds on campus. So we have scholarship funds. We have an emergency student fund called the Share Fund. We have an emergency student loan fund. So if a student comes in and says, hey, I don't have books for any of my classes, we have resources for them. We just need help finding those students who don't have resources. So like, for example, in Success Academy, we used our grant money and we bought 20 English 100 books. Well, I'm making those kids give them back because they don't need any more. I'm just going to give those books away now. So if you have students who need English 100 books, you know, we have those available. If they don't have a calculator, you can go check out a calculator from the Tutoring and Learning Center for the semester. Lynn will let you have the calculator for the semester. So there are resources available. We just need to make sure that we have the people on the ground who can help us determine what the students need.
Microsoft Office.
Microsoft Office, oh my gosh, that's like $350 value. They can download Microsoft Office for free onto their laptops.
5 devices.
Yes, up to 5. So they can get it on their cell phone, they can put it on their laptop, they can put it on their iPad, they can lose an iPad and get a new one. That's a huge resource. And again, that's really expensive if you have to buy it, but you also get that as faculty and staff members. So you can also download. So if you get a new computer, don't buy the Microsoft package. You can get that downloaded for free.
And you'll run into some kids who are doing all of their Blackboard, all of their work from a cell phone.
Yeah.
And I don't care how fast, and some of them type really fast and are really good on the cell phone. And I think I don't know if it's a true statement, Xavier, but I feel like those are the kids sometimes where there's lacking a lot of punctuation in what they're actually, you'll see it in the punctuation, like this looks like, or sometimes it tells you it's sent from a like iPhone, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kids you got to get to the computers in the library and places like that, and where the labs are.